Welcome back to the Strong Family Project podcast. I'm Joe, joined by Mel.
Welcome back to the Strong Family Project podcast, where we guide you on the path to raising confident, independent, and resilient children in a strong family environment.
60 seconds of house cleaning. This is our second to last episode before we take a summer break with our family. The last one will be a Q&A episode. If you have any, visit us at strongfamilyproject.com. You could submit your parenting topic for us to chat on there. Also, we have the free Strong Family Path that you can download over there, and on Amazon. The book has been going extremely well. The Strong Family Guidebook. It's short and sweet, great for a summer read. Mel, you ready?
Yep.
Big episode today. We're not going to go into the summer just flopping in without talking about some real things. And on today's episode, we're going to take a different approach. I walk around and get fired up about lots of things in society. However, instead of sitting here and complaining about it, we're going to talk about what we think society is getting right now that we can lean into. So we're not going to talk about all those things that get us all fired up and we can't really do much about many of them. Instead, we're going to talk about opportunities that we have as parents to consider using some of these resources. Before we get into it, question of the day. Mel, what are you doing for you this summer?
I decided to do 75 hard challenge starting June 1st.
And the quick overview is 2 daily workouts, 45 minutes inside, 45 minutes outside, stick to a nutrition plan, read 10 pages a day.
And drink more water.
Oh, yes, and drink more water. I drink so much water, I never even
I know,
think about
it never
that
matters
like
for
2
you.
gallons a day.
I do the reading. That I've been doing really consistently, so that's been good for me. I can check that box, but not the others as much.
What are you hoping to learn or get out of the experience of a dedicated program like that?
I want to learn that I can keep it going afterwards and not see it as just like challenge done and then move on. I want to like truly integrate the lessons. I guess you're asking what the lessons are. I want to integrate the discipline of what this program requires into my life post the 75 days. And
I'll be joining you on your program. What I really like about it is the 45 minutes outdoors, especially during the summer. We did it before, and it was during the winter, and it got challenging, which was fine. However, I know the kids want to get out and ride their bikes, and walking up and down the road with them while they ride bikes, or taking Henry over to some of the more challenging mountain bike trails will be the outside training.
You know what I noticed too is whatever happens like in my life, how things change. Like I started this job recently, and then I thought to myself, how am I going to fit this in my schedule? I feel like whatever you have on your schedule, you'll make the time for it. You've talked about this before. If something can take an hour, it'll take an hour. If you think it's going to take 3 hours, it'll take 3 hours. So sometimes I think to myself, well, how am I going to fit in that walk where we used to walk 45 minutes every day, and we haven't really been as good about that lately. So I look forward to making all those things fit and looking back and saying, yeah, you can make them fit if that's what you want to do. But it's so easy to make excuses for them not to fit.
Makes sense. Do you have a question of the day?
I was going to ask, what was your favorite part of last weekend? Because we had the fun Mother's Day, experiences.
Mel got to pick our activities, so we went with the other 80-year-olds to a hummingbird bird presentation for an hour and a half at the Nature Center, which was...
Oh, you're exaggerating. Hour and a half? No. It wasn't that long.
How long was it?
Less than an hour, because I was late.
You are. Yeah. You're crazy. It was at least an hour and a half, minimum.
Maybe it felt like that for you.
And I learned a lot about hummingbirds and...
I love it. I know that, to be fair, you came with me, but you walked around. You didn't sit there with me and listen. And you said, learn something interesting. And I really did.
So we went to the hummingbirds, which was all right. It was tolerable. I like being outdoors, so it was fine. And then we went on a trip to a dumpster to throw away some things from the driveway. We had a shed that got smushed by the snow, so we took that apart, threw some things away Mel wanted thrown away. And while we were gone, the kids made dinner. I think that was my favorite part. They tried to make some fancy stuff for you. They gave you a little fancy crystal kombucha glass or whatever it is.
It's a wine glass, but they put kombucha in it, yes.
Yes, I've never used one in my life, so I'm not sure what they are. And they designed this fancy dinner for Mel. Grilled Italian sandwiches.
Charcuterie board.
A charcuterie board.
Can't say it.
Charcuterie. They put out a piece of lumber and put some room temp meat on it, and we had a great dinner, and it was really cool that they did the whole thing. I thought there wouldn't be napkins. I thought there wouldn't be cups. I'm surprised there was plates, but it all came together. They did it all.
Yeah, it was so cool because my one request, honestly, was like, I don't want to cook on Mother's Day because I cook every single day. And Henry says, I don't know how you do this every day. It's so stressful. I mean, I'm used to it, but I so much appreciated that when we came back, they had surprised me with all of that. Like, it was all set. I wasn't expecting it. So it was like way above what I was expecting, and I very much appreciated that.
All right, here we go into today's topic. What is society doing well? Would you like me to go first?
I'd like you to go first.
I have a bunch of things because everything is so negative, and it's very easy to focus on that. That's why we're going to challenge your perspective. Love to hear from you in the comments of where you're watching it, either on YouTube or over on our website, on what you think is going well. But we'll start spitballing here. The first thing, the normalization of alternative education. So when I was in school, homeschooling seemed weird. Like, why would you do that? And this was the 90s. And I'm sure there's more kids doing homeschool than I knew. But even when we moved out to Colorado, they have much more support for homeschool in terms of what is available in each area. Homeschooling cohorts that get together during the day, I think, is largely to do with 2020 and all the lockdowns that have opened people's eyes to alternative ways to educate their kids. Not practical or possible for everyone. However, there are still other alternative methods. That's why I didn't specifically say homeschooling up front. That's just one. We have a great library program here that Logan attends for Concrete Couch, learns how to build things. There's a lot of different education programs outside of school, and we're fortunate to be in a state that has school choice, which is amazing after being in New York where you had to go in the district you live, but now you can choose the district based on their programs and types for the kids. So even though it is quote-unquote school, I'd consider it a little bit different than the East Coast education system still within the country, or even West Coast education system, where you can pick your school based on what they're focused on, whether it's music, whether it's engineering, whether it's a certain athletic sport, whatever. The schools here actually advertise, and you hear them on the radio. You have an open enrollment period of X amount of time where they all advertise everything they do. And then you get to pick your school as long as you provide the transportation. And I think that is something that's a move in the right direction.
And we've talked before about how there's a special 6th grade program housed at the elementary school that both Logan and Henry is almost done with now. It's the Mountain Academy of Arts and Sciences. And a lot of outdoor experience, a lot of field trips. Last week I got to go, actually it was on Monday, I went rafting with his class, and that was awesome. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I went to their band concert the other day, and Henry has not really picked up an instrument before, and the band sounded great. He was playing the clarinet, and I was sitting next to this grandmother, and I was like, oh, well, which kid is yours? Because I basically know all the kids from having helped in the class. And she mentioned the girl's name, and she's like, it's the best thing we did, having her transfer down here for this class. They were so excited about it. And that was what I was excited about. I love hearing the feedback and how special this particular program is, and the fact that even the grandparents are excited about it, because I feel like this kind of thing just wasn't the norm before. And my other point, going beyond high school even, I think about the different options for the kids. It's not like they just need to go to college. I think college is almost crept on these days. But I think that the exciting thing is there's so much you can learn just on your own. And Logan in particular, this past week, was given the opportunity to teach on Tinkercad, which is like a design program for 3D printing, in the construction class for one grade below him. And I loved this opportunity for him. What's important, if you know something, being able to teach it to someone else shows that you really know it. And I love that he was able to do that, and that opportunity was provided for him. Because historically, he has struggled in school, but he has certain aspects of his intellect that got him put into this gifted and talented program where this opportunity arose. And I just love that happen. And was he as excited about it as I was? I don't think so. But we really pushed for it. I helped him plan it, and it went very well.
I think you covered something really important there in way too much detail. But I will add that I think it's important that society has done well on is demystifying the college education as mandate. I think that is another outcome of the 2020 pandemic where they're like, oh, you got to go to college to learn these things. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, you don't need SATs. Yeah, you can just come. We're not going to kick anyone out. And everyone started saying, what's the point of a general college education, specific college education to be like a brain surgeon? Like, you probably want that. But the general one, and I'm going to put a caveat on this, general one, spend $200,000 to read a couple books that you could easily get access to for free, and then get, and just, I don't know, it's just really, you can see what's going on. It's not great in colleges. If you get general, like, this is coming from someone with a master's degree from a nerd college. Mel's got a master's degree from a nerd college, and honestly, now I wouldn't go back for it. I'm glad I did. Now things seem very different. Along those lines, you can't just say, oh, college is unimportant, and your kids interpret it as education is unimportant. Those are two very different things. So what I would lean into is separating the standard academic state-run or college-run curriculum with the word education. You can educate your kids in a ton of different ways. You probably have taken them on vacations that they've learned tons on. Using the word education, teaching them that they learn outside of a building or an institution is going to be really critical, that I think all parents need to lean into. And so having some sort of purpose with when you do things and summarizing things, I think is going to be very important. Because if people say, oh, going to college isn't important, they assume being smart isn't important. And that's how, like, they internalize it unless you explain it to them. And so you can't just go to those years and float through. You have to do something else. You have to be educated in another way, whether it's a trade, whether it's individual education, whether it's learning a specific skill and working your way up. It is so doable right now. You've never had more access to different kinds of education. So what our job is to teach our kids that education happens in different ways in different places.
Yeah, I want the kids to be passionate about learning. And I think sometimes when we talk about school, the kids only see school, like you're saying, that's the only place I learn. But what is it, yesterday, someday earlier this week, the kids have a late start day. And we had to take that shed down that you mentioned earlier that got smushed by the snow. And the kids are out there helping you unscrew the roof, because it's like this metal roof, whatever. And that is learning. Learning that you're capable, learning that you can do things on your own, learning that you can use these tools and be useful, like Everett was picking up the screws. That, in my opinion, is still learning. Mm-hmm. You're learning how to be part of a team. You're learning how to complete a project. It's not just book learning. I think that's important too. And I think in some families, though, the college thing is still elevated to the highest status you can have. And that makes me a little bit worried, only because I was helping with math on Tuesday, and there was a particular student who was like really anxious about the paper and not doing as well. And I asked her, will this matter in 20 years? Seriously, does this grade in 6th grade at this particular moment matter in 20 years? And I know for kids, they can't usually see past right now. Kids are very much in the moment people, but I think even planting those little seeds of maybe that kid will now go and ask herself, does this really matter 20 years from now? Not don't give it your full effort, but don't stress about it. I think it's important to have that mindset.
Similarly, and I'm not going to go down this path very far because I'll get too fired up.
I thought we were avoiding being fired up.
I know, but I'm just trying to inform people, because this one is a tricky one, a slippery fish, as they say.
Oh.
We got a text from Henry's soccer coach that advised essentially that at 9 years old, you start specializing in only one sport if you want to ever play in college. Now, as a former coach, former college athlete, strength and conditioning coach, I know that not to be true. And the dichotomy is, it's great that our kids have so much more than we had when we were young. We had some town sports, like whatever the town sport of the season was, I went to do, whether it was volleyball at Town Union, whether it was soccer, whether it was whatever. And you get to be well-rounded. The push of specialization is what you need to fight against, especially at 9, 10. Come on. Like, these kids are just learning how to move their bodies. They're not through puberty. You want them to specialize in a sport in hopes of playing in college that they probably won't even have a scholarship for. They'll just get to play in college, and now you're pushing that as the one path. So get your kids involved in lots of things. That was my point, and that's why I'm not going to get fired up. But get your kids involved, because there's so many different things for them to do, and try to fight against specialization at a young age. You can look at the studies. That's not true of the college and successful athletes that usually play more than one sport at 9.
And this is the scary thing for me. I took a screenshot of it and texted it to you, and I was like, what do you think? Because
What
even
the
though
hell?
you've told me before, this is not the way we're going to go and this isn't the best idea, the idea gets pushed out there. So if the average parent who didn't necessarily play sports or train or do all the stuff you do, they might just think, here's the coach telling me this, so I have to do this. I was talking to another dad where they spent thousands on this program for the springtime and they weren't even like really happy with how it went. But I think there's this pressure, this undue pressure, and especially when it comes from a coach, you want to believe that what they're saying is like the way to go. Anyway, so I guess you have to just be a critical thinker as an adult too.
Shifting gears.
Yes.
Mel, yours.
I'm going to say something positive about technology.
Do it.
So I like that my kids get exposed to people doing hard things. So like David Goggins, for example, or Cam Haynes, for example, or also the skill of like Henry loves to watch videos on how to cook. So I love that technology and has provided them an opportunity to learn things. I guess we're back to learning outside of just like school. But I really wanted to bring up the fact that they're exposed to other people who are doing really cool things and not just like us talking about it or us being an example for that. I love that they can see on YouTube people doing really cool things. I think that is something society is doing well, is along with all the stuff that's put out there that I don't agree with, there are gems for sure, and we need to direct the kids to those gems.
Their ability to learn, and that, well, their knowledge that they have access to has never been higher, and our role to lean into is to teach them how to filter and learn from that knowledge, and the kids are doing good with it. Henry's pulling out soccer moves because I never played soccer, so he's got to learn somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And if I didn't, or he didn't have access to those things, and we'll send him to like the school camp and stuff like that, then it would be like, you do have to go to all these special coaching programs because knowledge used to be held by only a certain individuals within their brain, and now it's accessible to everyone, and the ability to learn is the skill, not the knowledge. It's the ability to learn the knowledge and implement it that needs to be taught.
Well, Logan's been wanting to make some money lately, and he's been watching all these videos about like bank accounts and like how to invest your money, and he's talking to me about this on the way home from school yesterday. Again, another benefit from like carving out that one-on-one time, those 15 minutes of us driving home. And he's talking to me about some, how do you know this? He's, oh, I watched this channel on YouTube. So like we have to direct them, and that was, he directed himself there. But he's always looked up things that he can learn. But that was so impressive. Like I love that he had that knowledge. We didn't have YouTube to watch when we were younger to learn about things like that. So that's really cool too.
All right, my next one, and we'll get a couple more in here, is the reemergence of some decently healthy food. When we were a society where we were growing most of our food and having it, we had high quality food but low quantity food. And so we had issues with hunger around the world. And when we went to the industrialization of food in the late 1900s, we started to have an abundance of food to the point where obesity is more of an epidemic than being hungry currently in the world. We grew up, hey, you can't throw your food away. There's starving kids in the world. That's still true, but it's not nearly as true as it was because we have so much food production. Along with that food production, the quality standards fell tremendously in the 90s. If you wanted healthy food, I remember my mom would get like the frozen dinners, like Weight Watchers frozen dinners, and they just did not look good.
Salisbury steak.
Oh my goodness. I was like, wow, I never want to eat anything like that. And around the turn of the century, we started to get people who said, I want healthier options. So therefore the economy and market adapted and started providing some more healthy options. We do need to be informed that a lot of the healthy words that they use is just marketing, like locally sourced. I think the rule is it has to be within a 24-hour drive. What's within a 24-hour drive? Just almost the whole country. So not the whole country, but you're pretty close. You'll get at least half of the whole country in 24 hours. Words like organic are argued over on what it really means. However, that being said, if you put the effort in, you can find healthy alternatives now, which weren't as prevalent in the 90s, in the early 2000s, and even, there's a tremendous amount of fast food restaurants, but now, since 2000, we get things like Chipotle, which has been doing okay, some different brands where you could pick healthy food from.
And again, it's so easy to find recipes these days. Like you don't have to just rely on the one recipe book.
Do see a reemergence of the homesteading style movement, which the word homesteading can seem daunting because that involves taking care of farm animals. However, you can pick bits and pieces of it. Like we do sourdough, we do some canning type stuff, we do some preservation, we do some homemade teas and kombucha. We do some of it that fits our life in order to have healthier and better food. Homemade yogurt is a huge one for our family. There are some small go-tos that really take care of our family in a healthier way than were, I want to say were available, but were prevalent 2 decades ago.
We know a family who's essentially homesteading like in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, they got bees, they got chickens.
And I
It's
ask
really
myself, I think it's natural to immediately be like, well, I couldn't do that. How am I going to travel if I have stuff like that to handle? And they basically found like a neighborhood teenager who's like their farmhand. So when they go on a trip for 3 or 4 days or a week, they have that kid come over. That kid gets paid a little bit, and it's like a mutual agreement. And that really works out well for that kid and for that family. So as soon as, and this happens for me, as soon as you come up with an excuse, like we've thought about getting chickens, and I immediately am like, what are we going to do about this and this?
I want bees now. Some bees.
I'm actually fascinated by bees.
I want some.
So anyway, my point is that there are options and resources that you can figure out based on whatever the thing that comes up in your mind that holds you back.
Yeah, I'll throw out 2 more just so you have them available. If you're leaning into this, farm share in your area is a good word to search. That's where you can pay like a subscription fee, and they'll give you a farm box every week, every other week, every month, every quarter, however they have it set up of items that they're growing. Farmers use it to get some money to fund their crop up front. So they'll sell X amount of farm shares, and they grow it and they deliver it, and then they'll sell the rest at a farmer's market or wholesale to a local grocer or whatever. But farm shares are a good thing you can get in on at a usually lower price than store groceries. So people always bring up price with eating healthy. And also you can search, we do local beef, so you can search beef in your area. I forget the website right now off the top of my head that allows you to search. But we'll get local farmers. And again, it's actually cheaper than going to the grocery store if you buy in bulk, put it in a freezer so you have it. But that's all connected by the technology of the internet that Mel talked about.
Mm-hmm. I have another one.
Yep.
So this kind of comes from me reading the biography of Theodore Roosevelt, one of them, because I think there's a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. And he was alive back in the late 1800s in his 20s and 30s. And the way he would travel out west, I think by train, from like New York to one of the Dakotas, and he had like cow farm there. And just the treachery you had to go through to even survive in the West, it was crazy. So I love reading that book. But my point is how hard it was for somebody to move out west, what that meant. And now you can travel really anywhere you want. And we handpicked living out here. And I know that's not necessary. I know people are probably thinking that's not something we can do. And maybe you can't physically move your family. But exposing your family to other options. I had never been out west. I have no idea. I just saw pictures of it. And now that we've done it, I think it makes our kids a bit more resilient, knowing that they could move and create a new community for themselves. But beyond physically moving your whole family, going on trips that can be educational, that can show them what other possibilities are out there. Because I'm always thinking, so this is one example. When we were rafting the other day with Henry's class, I'm like chatting with the raft guide, because that's just what I do. And I'm like, well, how did you get into rafting? What do you do the other parts of the year? A lot of raft guides then are like ski instructors in the wintertime. And I'm always trying to look for other things that my kids could do when they grow up. Because what we already talked about, this all kind of connects. We already talked about how college isn't the only option. I'm like, maybe Henry would want to be a raft guide. And like,
he's going to be the vagabond life
like,
now.
There's definitely like aspects of it that I don't love. But I love the idea, this is my whole point, of exposing yourself to other lifestyles, to other ways people live, to other ways people experience life. Because I think that's exciting, and I love to have options for the kids. I've always thought of Henry like you could be a hiking instructor or like a hiking guide too, because he loves the outdoors. He started hiking with you when he was like 5, and I just want, by moving out here, it's opened my eyes to other opportunities for how people can live a life. And I think that wasn't as possible back in the Teddy Roosevelt days when you had to stay where you were unless you wanted to take like this many-week-long trip to get somewhere. I think that is a cool thing about the time we live in now.
All right, I'm going to give my last one.
Okay.
If you have one, you may go. Do you have another one?
I don't think so.
All right, we'll see what happens.
Okay.
The last one is a tough truth wrapped in a great opportunity for parenting, because I don't think parenting is as hard as we make it and as much pressure as we put on ourselves. We just are following the wrong North Star, which is only the route of being a provider and making money for our family. So that is one aspect that needs to be checked. However, if you ask people, like, what was the best part about your parents? I don't think I've ever met someone who said they made lots of money. I've had them say, oh, we didn't have a lot, but they made a lot out of it. We didn't have a lot, but they made the most of it, and they really poured into us, and they were really thankful for that upbringing. No one says, we had tons of money, they never paid attention to me, but my life was great, because that usually isn't how it works out. And so the tough truth is to lean into those things that are actually harder, because you're not as tangible as go to work, get paycheck. That's a very simple solution to figure out. Instead, it's what can we do to support our family? We're talking about a lot of different avenues that we could do, from some food options to education options. I don't want to say school, education options that kids can choose from. And you have to disassociate success with your ability to make tons of money. And success is more about the skills and the time and the quality that you put into your children. Along with it, I think there's so many more activities that we can do these days. I think there is, and maybe this is just me hopeful thinking, a reemergence of the importance of your physical body. And that maybe I'm being extra hopeful. Coming out of COVID, mortality rate or whatever, it skyrockets with being obese. And a lot of people who are obese now lived through those 90s that I talked about, where there wasn't as many options. You had to seek them out. You had to have some sort of knowledge or a role model to be able to find them. And now it's more abundant. But I can see kids starting to resent parents who don't take care of themselves at all. And so maybe it's a part of the people, I think it gets too lumped in with the mental health movement. Oh, you got to take care of you. Yes, you do. That is important. This isn't new. This isn't new agey anything. If you want your kids to talk about you 20 years down the road, here's the test that I use. If you're dead and gone, let's say more than 20 years, so Mel doesn't yell at me later, and they look at a picture of you on the wall, what is the story they're going to say? If they say, oh, they did the best they can, man, that usually means they didn't. That is usually them trying to justify it. If they say, oh, they didn't have a lot, but they spent so much time with me, I learned X, Y, and Z, that's great. They said, this is part of the story that I have to tell for my family, is that they weren't healthy. They didn't take care of themselves. They lived a shorter life. I didn't get to have them meet my kids. I didn't get them to see my dad to see where I live, because he passed away so young from not taking care of himself. I think there's a big emphasis in that now, that you need to take care of your physical body and role model for your kids. There's no more excuses for it. I think it's a great opportunity. The quantity of gyms in the area, the outdoor spaces, the online programs you could do, the opportunity is so tremendous now. The only reason not to is that you're focusing on the wrong things.
I love that question of what would you say about your parent if you saw that picture on the wall? 'Cause just like I said earlier to that girl in school, will this matter 20 years from now? I think that's a good lens of and when you're parenting. Is what I'm doing with my time with my kid right now going to matter 20 years from now? Is this relevant? And I think it's very easy to get sidetracked. And I think that the take care of you, I think people interpret that in many different ways. So take care of me might mean I'm going to go sit in my room and eat like a box of chocolates or whatever because I need a little me time. That's different than like actually taking care of your body and being that role model for your kids. So I think that you have to be a little more honest with yourself with what take care of me means. Maybe it's like you need to just sit down for a minute and have some time to yourself, but what are you doing with that time? And I think what popped into my mind when you started talking about this is if you don't know how to focus your time better with your kids, that's what the Strong Family Path is all about. Pick a piece of the path. For me, I think the most important one in a lot of ways is the evening debrief. That extra time I spend with the kids downstairs at the end of the day, I learn so much about where their head's at, about what they're hearing at school, about what kind of ideas are prevalent in their culture, like the kid culture these days. I would be lacking so much information if I didn't take the time to do that with the kids in the evening. So it gives me feedback. They know that they can come to me, and because they'll come to me with things that sometimes I don't want to talk about at that time of day. But I'm pouring into that relationship so that 20 years from now, or hopefully like 50 years from now, when we're all still around, They are still, they value what we provided. They value that. 'Cause I know sometimes I'll think to myself, I know what I'm doing is good for them, even if they don't know what's good for them right now. Or they might get upset with me about something, but I know that this is what they need for their future to be successful, and I'm still pouring into them. So you're always self-evaluating, and there's different areas of that. So you were talking more of like the physical health. This is more of like the emotional connection that you have with the kids. Another aspect of the path is those relationships in the home and how I'm connecting with each kid and how we connect. And I think those are things to really keep top of mind. So the path is really the foundation for all of it. At least it has been for our family.
Thanks for bringing that around, Mel. If you want a free copy of The Strong Family Path, it's for you at strongfamilyproject.com. We have one more episode to go before summer break here. So send us your questions. We'll be happy to talk about them. And if you don't have a specific question, a topic that you'd like us to chat on would be fine. Hopefully you pick some value out of these opportunities that you can lean into with your family. Don't try to do it all at once. Just pick one or two things, work on it this summer, and then slowly move forward. So don't get overwhelmed. Get excited. Talk to you on the next episode.